Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Trumbore with your nightly review for Wednesday, December 26th. It's about 4:03 Eastern Time. Hope you all had a good Christmas. I took over dinner to my parents Christmas Eve, then I hosted Christmas Day for my folks, my brother's family. Good time had by all. I got a official R.A. Dickey Lego deal. It says for age 6 and up. I think I can put it together. I'm not sure. I'm not real good at these things. But you might want to get one since he's no longer a Met, and this isn't his Met jersey, at OYO sportstoys.com. OYO sportstoys.com. Great plug for these guys. By the way, that was a little Strauss waltz. I always think it's traditional between Christmas and New Year's, and especially New Year's Day. You play Strauss waltzes, whether you like it or not. Well, it's been an interesting time. Actually, we have a big weather event, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed because we just had a bout of heavy snow, and it's transitioning to heavy rain right now, and then we're going to get potentially 60-mile-an-hour wind gust, and I'm very afraid I'm going to lose power. Also have to mention, yes, I went to Wake Forest, but my friend Johnny McCarthy, as a Christmas gift, sent me a UNC Asheville sweatshirt, so I told him I would wear it proudly. Johnny hailing from Asheville these days. Alright, I guess we're going to hear about the fiscal cliff. President Obama in a couple hours will be wheels up, heading back to Washington, arriving tomorrow morning, Thursday, trying to head off the fiscal cliff. $600 billion in tax increases and spending cuts. Senate needs to come up with something that will clear the House. House Speaker Boehner and Obama have the framework of a deal to raise $1 trillion in tax revenues and cut $1 trillion in spending. Obama said a deal could be reached, and he wants to extend the Bush tax cuts to those under $250,000, as well as an extension of jobless benefits for long-term unemployed, regardless though the payroll tax holiday is going away. So for starters, that's an immediate hit for everyone. That's austerity that hits right away in January. If there is no deal, and it certainly doesn't look like there is going to be one, and if it's this little mini deal stopgap crap, I told you for a long time, especially in my week in review columns and since I've started these videos, that whatever they come up with is gonna suck. And eventually the markets will recognize that. That's been my line, and I'm sticking to it. Anyway, if there's no deal, the Congressional Budget Office predicts a recession in the first half of the year. Failure to achieve a deal so far is obviously impacting business and consumers. And then you have the debt ceiling debate. Will it be included in any fiscal cliff deal, say in early January? I don't know. We face a credit downgrade. Some people say it doesn't matter because the first one didn't. I say a second one would matter. We're hitting the $16.4 trillion debt limit this week if we haven't already hit it. Treasury can take extraordinary measures to buy time, but that only takes us into February, potentially early March. It's just going to be incredible chaos in Washington. Greg Valliere, a veteran political strategist at Potomac Research Group, told Barron's over the weekend that at this late date there remain two possibilities to avoid the cliff. Sometime before New Year's, Congress could pass legislation to keep tax rates where they are, to kick the can down the road. The second possibility is for the Democratic-controlled Senate and White House to strike a deal with Boehner. Then it would likely have to move through a House-Senate conference committee, but the chances of this happening before New Year's Eve, as he put it, seem increasingly unlikely. He was being polite. So after hurtling over the cliff, Valliere says there's a chance for Plan C in the new year involving restoration of the Bush tax rates for most Americans after they reverted temporarily to the Clinton-era rates. That would mean Congress would be voting for tax cuts, and the Republicans who pledged never to raise taxes would remain true to their vow, technically. But Valliere adds that would leave an enormous number of moving parts, including the estate tax, capital gains, dividends, the alternative minimum tax, and the debt ceiling. A wide range of issues that have to be fixed fairly quickly. So speaking of the alternative minimum tax, the Internal Revenue Service made it known that more than $200 billion in tax refunds normally made in the first quarter may be delayed until the second quarter, due mainly to confusion over the AMT. As Barron's Gene Epstein notes, in a December 19 letter to the House Committee on Ways and Means, IRS Acting Commissioner Stephen T. Miller warned that, quote, most taxpayers may not be able to file their 2012 tax returns until late in March of 2013 or even later, with lengthy delays of tax refunds resulting. Miller hiked his estimate of the number of returns not filed on time from a previous 60 million to 80 million to, from a previous 60 million to 80 to 100 million of the 150 million total returns expected to be filed. So Epstein adds that consumer spending has been increasing by an average of 90 billion per quarter. So let's say 100 billion in refund checks gets postponed, though the IRS is talking up to 200 billion. Call it 100 billion. That alone could cause a decline in consumer spending in the first quarter, let alone the elimination of the payroll tax holiday of 2 years, and that will hit paychecks to the tune of 25 billion in the first quarter, and you start adding these things up, and that's how you get a recession, sports fans. Italian Prime Minister Mario Monti said he won't run in the country's elections in February 24th, 25th specifically, though he would consider being the candidate for a coalition backing his economic agenda. One in which, in the last 13 months, every economic indicator has gone down. At a press conference over the weekend, Monti said, for the forces that are willing to convincingly and coherently adhere to the Monti agenda, I am ready to give my appreciation, encouragement, and, if requested, my guidance, and I'd be willing to assume one day, if the circumstances lend themselves to it, the responsibilities that could be bestowed by Parliament. Voters in Italy cast ballots for a party list or coalition, which then picks the Prime Minister. So Monti, while not running for Parliament, could still be a designated candidate for Prime Minister. I believe that January 11th is a cutoff date for electoral lists. So I think at that point a coalition could name Monti as their leader. Shinzo Abe was sworn in today as Japan's 7th Prime Minister in 6 years. He had been Prime Minister from 2006 to 2007 before resigning due to health issues that he says no longer exist. Abe told a news conference in Tokyo, "With the strength of my entire cabinet, I will implement bold monetary policy, flexible fiscal policy, and a growth strategy that encourages private investment, and with these three policy pillars achieve results." Now, in tackling deflation, he has warned the Bank of Japan that it risks losing its independence through legislative changes if the BOJ does not introduce a 2% inflation target. Right now it is at 1%. So picture one of our politicians like Obama directing the Federal Reserve what to do. Abe also said he would step up Japan's alliance with the United States, and he has pledged to take a tough line in a territorial row with China, while China has urged Mr. Abe to take practical steps to deal with the dispute over islands in East China Sea. Abe has also called for Japan's pacifist constitution to be revised and patriotic sentiment nurtured. Staying in the region, interesting piece in a South Korean newspaper on Tuesday. Late leader Kim Jong-il lost his temper because of sloppy work on a crucial power station before he suffered a fatal heart attack a year ago. That's the theory, that he became violently angry after belatedly finding out about a leak of water at this hydroelectric plant that was to be among his great achievements. All right, Middle East. In Egypt, President Mohamed Morsi has signed into law the new Islamist drafted constitution after results on Tuesday from the two-week election process, December 15th and 22nd, showed the constitution was approved by 64% of the people. However, turnout was just 33%, which certainly threatens the legitimacy of it. Morsi says the constitution will lead to stability and protects all groups. The next step is for parliamentary elections within 2 months. The constitution has wriggle room for interpretation, and Parliament will have that power. So it's going to be most interesting how that election goes. Meanwhile, the economy is in a shambles. Negotiations over a $4.8 billion loan, very badly needed from the IMF, are dicey. The IMF will demand reforms. It had approved the loan at first until the latest instability. So it's going to demand reforms, and Morsi needs the opposition to support his austerity measures. There's a big problem recently with capital flight, and on Tuesday the government announced a ban on traveling in or out of the country with more than $10,000 in foreign currency. Rumors are rife that the government will take over bank deposits to pay the wages of government employees, so that's the kind of rumor that's spreading around the street, and everybody's pulling their money out of the banks. In Syria, the death toll is now 44,000 plus since March of 2011. There are totally unconfirmed reports the Assad regime used chemical weapons in an attack on homes on Christmas Eve. The chief of the Syrian military police apparently defected. Tensions increasing between Shias and Sunnis. A government airstrike on a bakery in rebel-held territory killed over 100 people. The video is incredibly gruesome. 1,000 had been queuing up at this spot. I told you in a video about 2 weeks ago that the government was targeting the bakeries because they're targeting the hungry, which is a sick. The U.S. is going to have zero influence on whatever emerges when Assad is finally taken out or leaves, or maybe stays another couple of years, but we won't be in the picture. Other than that, everything's just great. Finally, I saw a story in paper about a cold spell in Russia that I had to then look up the temperatures. At least 123 died as a result of this recent cold wave, far earlier than normal. For a 10-day stretch starting December 15th, these are the high temperatures in Fahrenheit in Moscow. 9, 10, 7, 2, 1, 1, 0, 9, 0, -4. Those were all the highs before it warmed up to 16 on Christmas Day, our Christmas. Not Russian Orthodox Christmas, I hasten to add. By the way, in eastern Siberia, it's a true story, it hit -60 degrees, which I looked up is -76 Fahrenheit. Part of winter being described by local media as the coldest in 70 years. Well, that's all for tonight. I'll be back with you tomorrow, Thursday. Keep the men and women of our armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And for more stuff, go to stocksandnews.com. I'm Brian Trumbore. Take care.